Alrighty, everyone, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for your time today. We are really happy and excited to be presenting this presentation again, specifically on employment options and career preparations for international students. While the title does say international students, it is open to all students that are transitioning, regardless of if it's physically at a different location or if it's culturally at a different country, regarding your education and what you are trying to pursue. So it is open to all those that are interested in this topic. But once again, we thank you for your time today. This presentation is presented by Student Employment, the Center for Career Services, specifically our career exploration coaches, and our international services offices. So we do have a couple of members from each office today who will introduce themselves as we go through the presentation. Due to the nature of today's presentation, there is a lot of topics that we are going to be covering. So if you do have any questions at any point or time, please feel free to use the Q&A feature or jot them down in the chat. Most likely, we will be answering all the questions towards the end of the presentation. But once again, if you have a question that is not being answered throughout, just make sure to use the Q&A feature or jot it down in the chat, and one of us at the end of the presentation will be able to assist you. All right. So, the agenda today for this presentation is to go over a couple of things specifically. We are going to go over employment availability to F1 and J1 students, which is basically a very brief overview of the on-campus employment, CPT and OPT, as well as academic training, which ISO will therefore go into a little bit later on. Employment culture and opportunities at GW. So, active student employment population, positions available, what to look for, and challenges when acclimating to a new job environment. The application itself. So, we'll be going over effective resume and cover letter guidelines. So, review of the standard application processes and tips on how to create effective and personalized resume and cover letters. We are also going to go over interview strategies and follow-up practices. So, what are best follow-up practices and interview strategies with employers, as well as important notes on best ways to follow up regarding your application. Where to find a job and how to apply. So, the review of the student talent management system, CPT, which ISO once again will go over on their own section, or if you reach out to them specifically. And then resources and networking and next steps. So, career coaches, handshake, and what do those systems look like in order for you to use it to your best benefit. We're going to go ahead and speak about the aspects of U.S. work culture. And for that, I want to go ahead and introduce one of our career coaches, Cole Godden.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bashar. And yeah, good morning or good afternoon or good evening to everyone. My name is Cole Godan, and I am one of the industry career coaches at GW Center for Career Services. So just wanted to dive in a little bit about what are some of the unique aspects of the U.S. work culture. So kind of going into the category of traditional workplace norms. Typically, it's a little less hierarchical, and it is something where in this work setting. Normally, your sort of individual achievements, your kind of innovation is valued in these spaces. So, really, your promotion and your ability to be successful in the work environment is really based on your merit. And something really unique to the US work culture as well as that is a lot of employers are really embracing of different diverse skill sets and inclusive of different individuals. So, which is why the teamwork and collaboration are always so consistently encouraged, is because employers and hiring managers are always wanting to get people with such a diverse skill set and coming in from different backgrounds and perspectives, so that way it can inspire others on the team. And that being said, too, office celebrations are a huge thing. So I do think that depending on the organization that you work for, there may be for like fun Fridays, there may be different coffee breaks. So if you do have an opportunity to engage in any of these sort of outside of work celebrations or even inside, this is something that is optional for sure, but it can be a great way to bond with your team and get closer with them to create that cohesive collaboration. When we get into the communication lens, direct and open communication is favored, as well as small talk is encouraged. So, you may notice if in the kind of US work culture setting, a lot of people, especially like bright and early on that Monday morning, people are like, "How was your weekend?" Or, how are things going with your family? Or, and again, you're welcome to share as much or as little as you like, but just know that that kind of small talk is very common within the workplace. And getting kind of into more of the dress attire, definitely this is something where I'm always the type where on my first day of any sort of position, I always try to dress a little bit more professional or what I feel like is most, you know, professional for me. And this is kind of for normally your day-to-day may be business casual, but setting that first impression is always really great and really important. And if you are, really trying to understand what the office attire is, I think it's great to kind of research what the typical attire is for that office, and sometimes even looking on either like the organization's webpage to see what people may be wearing in their like professional headshots. And you can even ask your supervisor when given or after given an offer, what type of attire is expected. So, okay. So also some of the unique things that are common challenges faced by students when studying abroad. We have especially when you are pursuing any kind of education in a different country, different context, there may be certain elements that arise, such as navigating cultural transitions, maybe overcoming potential language barriers, managing homesickness, accommodation expectations, adapting to maybe different teaching methods inside of the classroom, meeting academic expectations, limited financial opportunities, as well as adjusting to different time zones. So, something I will also just bring up too that's very unique to DC itself is, I know that a lot of times, especially with managing homesickness, is often a big one. I will say the really great part about DC is there's always such a huge international culture, and I think that that alone brings the ability to connect with people from not only, maybe your own culture, but also people from other cultures as well. So I think that, finding those pockets where you can connect to home is always really important when going abroad.
Okay, I think it's my turn. First of
Okay.
all, I want to thank Cole Frederica Basha for inviting me today to speak. My name is John Benjamin. I work at the GW International Services Office, also known as the ISO. And before anything else, I need to say that I am a huge fan of the GW Center for Career Services. GW has so many great departments and great resources, but one of the best is the Center for Career Services because a lot of people who come to the university, one of their goals is to find employment when they're graduated or they're in the future. And I just want to say the Center for Career Services is great and they will help you. And I cannot compliment them enough. With that said, speaking of great offices, I want to talk a little bit about the International Services Office, my office. And the reason I work at the ISO personally is because working abroad changed my life. I worked in China for 5 years. I also studied abroad in South Korea. And those were not only the best years of my life, but they gave me the foundation for my future and they taught me everything that I wanted to do in the future. So I really hope that you guys will get to at least experience that at some point is to work if you can. And with that being said, how can you do that? How will the ISO help you? I'll give you a little preview of that today. Primarily, what does our office do? Well, uh, I think the most important one that I think a lot of people will talk about is that there's a lot of difficult visa policies and rules and regulations. And so with J1 and F1 students, we will help the student populations kind of learn more about what are the do's and don'ts, and kind of as you are enrolling in classes and kind of encountering your own unique situations, our advising team will help you navigate those difficult processes. And if you have any questions at any time, you can just send us an email, schedule an appointment. We'll be there for you to help you learn what you need to know. Secondly, you'll see a little bubble on the right-hand side called Campus and Community Resources. This is an interesting bubble. I oftentimes have to do this presentation and people ask me, what is this? This refers to when students at GW are not sure what office to go to if they have a question. Because sometimes at GW, you have a question for us for the International Services Office, but other times you'll have a question for a different office, like the Center for Career Services. So the ISO, sometimes if we don't know the answer, we will help you find the office that has the correct answer. And so we hope to be a central place where if you can contact us, we will make sure that you can find the correct office who can help you answer your question. Beyond that, I want to give a quick shout out to my colleague Nina, who is one of the best events programming specialists that GW has ever seen. She plans events specifically for people who are interested in international studies and also for international students. And she throws the best events from events that are more informational about learning more about how F1 and J1 visa regulations work, to social events where you can meet other international students and domestic students. Just all of them are great, highly attended, and I hope you guys will have a chance to attend those. Finally, this last bubble, advocacy. This is the most confusing one of all, but I think is the most important one of all. And that is the international rules and regulations at the government level are always changing. And in addition to that, sometimes there are times when it's not about the regulations themselves that you are following. Sometimes there are issues that are at the government level. There are issues that where students need people to advocate for them, whether that means our director of our office going to government meetings to talk about what international students need. So at any point, we are advocating for our students at a macro level and also at the individual level. We want to make sure that you have somebody talking to the government for you to make sure that you can maintain your rights. Okay. So this is one of my favorite slides, everybody. I cannot wait to tell you about this. We have an opportunity for you. We have a group of students who are called the ISCAs, the International Student Community Ambassadors. And this is a group of students who, and I am not joking here, they have undergone boot camp, strenuous training to learn the ins and outs of employment in the United States as an international students. They are specialists at writing cover letters and resumes. They're specialists at networking and helping you learn how to navigate the job application process. They're fantastic. And the most important part about them is they are also international students like many of you. So they have the unique perspective of being able to assist you in addition to having the knowledge of how to find a job and kind of apply for one, but also in terms of doing that as an international student. So what I'm hoping is that you will not just utilize the Center for Career Services, which you definitely should, but also if you have any questions that maybe you're not sure about how to begin, you're not sure how to start, or maybe to even frame your your resume or any of your experiences for the Center for Career Services before you talk to them. I hope you will first schedule an appointment as well with the ISCAs. And the cool thing is they have a portal at Handshake where you can make an appointment with the ISCAs through that portal. So if you check Handshake, GW Handshake, you should be able to make an appointment with them. And again, what do? They do a lot of amazing things. They make their own events and workshops. They will review your resume and cover letter, as I said, and they also have a lot of resources for if you're not sure where to go. If in addition to our office providing the resources, as I said, being a community reference point, our ISCAs will also help you find where you need to go at GW. If you're interested in communicating with them, you can just type in GW ISCA on Google, but you can also use their social media, this GW_ISCA at Instagram, or you can email them at gwisca@gwu.edu. Very easy to get in touch with them. So I hope you guys will have the chance to do that. Okay, now I think one of the most important parts of this presentation is looking at what types of employment can international students at GW engage in. Specifically today, I can only really talk about F1 students and J1 students because those are the two different populations that we mainly work with. If you are an F1 student or J1 student, there are types of employment authorizations that are available to you, as well as kind of a default employment opportunity that you could look at. So I'll start with the center of this Venn diagram. In the center, you will see it says on-campus employment. So for J1 students, I want to emphasize this. J1 students will still need to check with the ISO before starting any on-campus employment. F1 students, you actually have the ability to, as part of your F1 visa um, benefits, you are able to engage in 20 hours a week of on-campus employment during required semesters and during non-required semesters. Sometimes that can be summer, sometimes not, but during non-required semesters, you can engage in full-time employment on campus, which is exciting. So I hope you guys will have a chance to, if you're interested in working on campus, that means GW jobs in particular. I hope you have the chance to engage in that employment. And again, if you're not sure whether it's an on-campus job or not, always best to email the ISO, contact us, and ask, because the last thing you want to do is to be working in the United States unauthorized without authorization. So please make sure before, and honestly, before you begin any employment, it's not a bad idea to just check with the ISO to make sure that you can do that type of employment. Really, I want to make sure I emphasize again that you can, at GW, you can do, as an F1 student or a J1 student, you can only engage in employment if you have authorization. And it just so happens that the on-campus employment is a little bit easier than the other types. For F1 students, you also have access to CPT, which is curricular practical training, and OPT, optional practical training. Generally, CPT can only be done by students, international students who have already completed one academic year at GW. So you generally cannot start CPT during your first semester or even second semester. CPT happens at the same time during your academic program that is listed on your I-20. So it's during those duration of your program dates. And then CPT, most importantly, does require authorization from our office. So before you even begin your CPT application process, please email us to check in with us about the process, read our website guides, attend our events that talk about CPT, because it is very important to obtain authorization for CPT before you begin employment during the semester. But that's very exciting if you are able to work on campus, again, part-time, during the semester, or sometimes during non-required semesters. You can work full-time. It depends on your situation, but we hope that you can engage in CPT as long as it's part of your program. CPT is generally, unfortunately, must be a required part of your program or an integral part of your program, and that is something that generally your academic program advisors will know. So please check in with your academic program advisors, but also the ISO about whether you are eligible for CPT. Additionally, OPT is a fantastic benefit of the F1 students. OPT generally happens after you graduate, and it requires the ISO to submit a recommendation. So please don't apply for OPT or engage in OPT before you get your ISO recommendation and before you get authorization from USCIS, because what will happen is after you apply for OPT from our office, we will then give you that recommendation to submit to USCIS to get the real OPT authorization back. So please make sure that you're planning ahead. And of course, OPT is one of those things, and CPT as well, that you want to plan as far ahead of time as you can. And as for how long ahead of time, please check our website and please attend our workshops. We have videos on our website that will explain to you the best way to prepare for OPT and how long ahead of time you should start to do that. In addition to F1 students, J1 students also have a unique employment opportunity, which is called academic training, or AT for short. AT can be during or after your studies, and it also requires authorization from the ISO. So we hope that if you are engaging in any off-campus employment through CPT, OPT, or academic training, that the first step will be to ask the ISO about the regulations and to read more about that, because you should not be working off-campus at all if you do not have authorization from our office. So please make sure, if there's one thing you learned today, please make sure that you get authorization from the ISO and that you are all set before you begin any authorization, and make sure you have that authorization from our office. Great. Thanks so much. And the next slide. All right, great. So this is another important piece of the employment process. Um, to engage in employment in the United States as an international student, you will likely need a social security number, an SSN. And so SSN usually is 9 digits, and it's something that the government uses to track your record, what your wages and your employment earnings. Um, Usually to get an SSN, you have to get one from the Social Security Administration, which is the SSA for short. So SSN is the number, SSA is the administration. And then F1 and J1 students, in order for them to obtain an SSN, they actually already have to have a job offer, a formal job offer, usually written, signed job offer from the company. So if you don't have a job, unfortunately, you are not yet eligible to get an SSN. And please note that it is not a good idea to apply for a job to get an SSN and then not pursue that job. If you were just trying to get an SSN just by applying for it, if you're trying to get an SSN just by applying for a job, we don't recommend that, as that could cause some future trouble for your visa. So please make sure that you are intending to pursue your job if you apply for an SSN. Additionally, SSN numbers are actually quite private. It is something that you don't want anybody else to see, unless it is, a legitimate source. And so please check to make sure. Honestly, you could check with our office or the Center for Career Services if you're not sure whether it's okay to share your SSN with anybody. But generally, it should be kept private from, I would say, 99.99% of cases. Um, for on-campus employment, the good news is the ISO can help you get an SSN. We will provide a letter to you for you to use that letter at the SSA to get your SSN. So you take your letter from the ISO and you use it at the Social Security Administration to get to apply for your SSN. That being said, we are hearing that the process can take a long time now. There are some extended wait times at the Social Security Administration. So please, if you're engaging in employment, we recommend starting the process as early as possible to get your Social Security card, your Social Security number. And of course, for any off-campus employment, so CPT, OPT, AT, for those opportunities, we really hope that you will contact your employer to provide the SSN letter. Unfortunately, our office, the ISO, does not provide Social Security number support letters for off-campus employment. So only if you're working on campus, please ask the ISO for a letter. But you will need a letter to take, regardless of who it's from, if it's for your employer or for the ISO, you will need a letter to apply for your Social Security number from the Social Security Administration. So if you have any questions about that, or you're interested in learning more, please check our website. There's a link here at the bottom of the page, internationalservices.gwu/social-security-taxes. And also, we have a lot of information about that on our website and of course, through advising. So please ask us more. That's our job. Okay, and then this slide is important. Just to give you a quick introduction to what is on-campus employment. It is important to have that distinction because if you're eligible for on-campus employment versus do you need CPT or OPT authorization, it is important to check to see if your job, your opportunity actually is an on-campus employer. So I'll read this line to you. It says, on-campus employment includes work done as teaching or research assistant, as well as jobs in the school library, cafeteria, bookstore, and administrative offices that provide direct student services. However, there are commercial firms or offices that are on the GW campus. They're located on the GW campus, but they're not GW employers. So they're not considered on-campus employment. So stores like CVS or Whole Foods, which are on campus, they do not count as on-campus employment. So even a construction company that's working on a school building or companies that rent GW office space, just be aware that there could be companies that are on campus that are not technically on-campus employers. So please check to make sure with our office if you're not sure that the opportunity is a GW employer if you want to engage in on-campus employment. In addition, I will mention that there are some immigration regulations that apply to on-campus employment. So generally, when school is in session, when you have a required semester, employment for you is limited to 20 hours per week. That is inclusive of any work undertaken under scholarships, fellowships, or assistantships. So keep that in mind. You can do multiple jobs, but they cannot they are only limited to 20 hours per week total. So you cannot go above that. So if you have two jobs, one job is 10 hours a week, one job is 15 hours a week, that's 25 hours a week total. Unfortunately, that is not acceptable for during required semesters. Um, in addition to that, on-campus employment is permitted full-time employment on-campus employment is permitted during summer breaks for students who have registration coming up in the next term. So if the summer is not your last term, and if your summer term is not required by your school, then generally you are eligible to work full-time during the summer break. Since this not doesn't technically apply to every single student because you could have a required summer program, or maybe if your summer semester is required because it's your final semester, it's hard to know. So please check with our office to make sure. Um, and additionally, eligible students can work full-time during winter break and spring break. So those shorter vacations, you can work during those durations. And of course, full-time on-campus employment is permitted during summer breaks for students registered for the subsequent academic term. So make sure that you guys are, even if say you're planning to graduate early and not do another subsequent term, your summer term could become your final term. So make sure that you're keeping track of that as well. Um, and lastly, all on-campus employment needs to cease the day that you complete all your academic requirements. So you're not allowed to work if your academic program and your I-20 or your DS 2019 has a final date on there, your program end date. You're not allowed to work after that date. So make sure that you are keeping your on-campus employment within your program dates. That being said, it was an honor to speak with you all today. You are all great. Thank you for taking the first step to attending this workshop, and I am privileged to pass the mic back to my colleagues at the Center for Career Services. Thank you.
Awesome. So before we jump in back to our career coaches, I want to go ahead and describe the differences between work study. So as you start to navigate the positions on our portal, you'll see that there are three different categories, which are on-campus federal work study positions, off-campus federal work study positions, and then there'll be non-FWS positions. And so the Federal Work Study Program is a federally funded program that allows students who have received a federal work study offer from the Office of Student Financial Assistance. And this opportunity is to earn money through a position during the fall and spring semesters, but the pool of money that is received is also a part of your financial aid package. So if you are an international student that does not qualify for a financial aid package under the Office of Student Financial Assistance, that means that you will only be able to apply for non-federal work study positions. And so they are on-campus positions. However, once again, they are non-federal work study. The main difference is where that money is coming from. So it does not affect your paycheck directly. It does not affect you specifically. It is just how the departments are able to pay you and where those funds are coming from. So once again, if you have been offered and accepted federal work study funds as part of your financial aid package, you are eligible for a federal work study position. And then once again, they are only available to domestic students who qualify for the program, but international students are able to apply to non-FWS positions. So once you have the opportunity to visit the student employment website and you're able to create your applicant portal account and you're able to view the positions that are currently available, you'll be able to begin applying to those non-FWS positions. Just as a notice, you might not see a lot of them available right now, and that is because we're transitioning into the new academic year. So, towards the end of July, starting August, you'll see non-FWS positions be posted more and more on our portal. But I do recommend to create an account and begin looking at the positions just to familiarize yourself with the portal. But more information on that later in the presentation on how to create an applicant portal account and so forth. Right now, we're going to go ahead and enter the U.S. application tips and workforce etiquette section of this presentation that will be presented by Cole and Frederica. So let's go ahead and jump in.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Frederica Camille, and I am one of the industry career coaches at the Center for Career Services. And what I'm going to go over is this wonderful website called Handshake. So what is Handshake? Handshake is an online platform where students can pursue various opportunities. So it's a place where you can create an appointment to see an international student career ambassador, which John mentioned earlier. They can support with resumes, cover letters, navigating the CPT, OPT academic training process because they themselves are international students. And it is also where you can create an appointment to see a career coach. So that's me and Cole and a few other colleagues that are not on this webinar. And when you meet with a career coach, you can cover a variety of topics, not only regarding your resumes and cover letters, but even personal statements for graduate school applications is something that we can support with. Salary negotiation, advocating for yourself at the workplace, navigating US work culture norms, networking, how to connect your college major to possible career opportunities, and career exploration is also something that you can get from a meeting with a career coach. Also on Handshake, we have a library of resources that are available on demand. So if you are not ready to see a career coach, but would like to peruse through, resources that are available, you can also find that on Handshake. I would like to add that Handshake is a database where employers can post internship and job opportunities, and that some of those positions may qualify for CPT and OPT for F1 students and academic training for J1 students. Just make sure that when you are seeing these employment opportunities that you are reading the fine print that you are eligible for the opportunity. Also on Handshake, we post our events. So the events tab will post things like, we have, a think tank coming to campus to talk about employment opportunities and work norms and, post-grad opportunities that are available on campus. We have our workshops about, networking, resumes, etc. And all of those things are posted on events. If you have not yet downloaded Handshake to your phone, highly recommend you download it, you bookmark it, add the app. It's single sign-on, and this is a great tool to stay connected to the opportunities available on campus. Just so that you all know how to access these resources, you go on the website, jw.joinhandshake.com. You use your single sign-on credentials to log in, and you just click on the Career Center tab, which is circled on the screen, and that's where you can find our library of resources, events, and create an appointment to see a career coach. Next slide, please. All right, so I have a question for everyone. Feel free to put your answers in the chat. From your experience, what are some examples of advice that you may have received when seeking employment opportunities? Let's see what people have to say.
And also, I just wanted to hop on for a moment. The questions that are in the chat right now, we will have some time at the end. I believe Bashar had kind of mentioned that in the beginning as well. I just wanted to, restate that we'll have time for questions, so we'll make sure we get a lot of those answered at the end of the presentation too.
Okay. What do the students think? What are some advice that you have received when it comes to looking for employment? Anyone want to share? Okay, we see apply broadly, make sure you meet the requirements, tailoring a resume and cover letter. Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, I'll cover our advice to you all for in the United States, what tips and strategies to utilize to enhance your success at attaining employment opportunities. Okay, can you please go to the next slide? All right, so here in the United States, A resume should only be 1 page for every 0 to 10 years of experience. And the general rule of thumb is that if you have 10 plus years of full-time work, then you can have a 2-page resume. But at this point in your career, if you have less than 10 years of experience, you should only be submitting a 1-page resume. What section do you put first on your resume, education or experience? At this point in your career, you want to prioritize your education at the top, and then you put your experience section below the education section. And the reason for that is because your education experience is more relevant and you don't have a lot of work experiences yet, that you want to prioritize your education at the top. You'll also want to organize your resume from newest to oldest, meaning that you put your most recent education at the very top of your education section, and then below that, you put your older education. So for those of you who are in graduate programs, you're pursuing your master's or your PhD, that will go on top of your education section, and then below that will go your bachelor's degree. You also want to use the same order for your experience section, where you put your most recent experiences at the top and then put your oldest experiences at the bottom. There used to be a time in the United States when you would put an objective statement at the top, and that is no longer a thing that we do in the United States, because the objective of your resume is to get a job, so it takes up valuable space on the resume. So you should not include an objective statement or an objective section at the top. Sometimes but rather than objective statement, other companies and organizations might ask for a professional summary, which is a summary of your experiences and education, and you put that one at the top. But that is more of an optional thing, and it's not really required. Okay, should you include personal information such as your age, marital status, gender, and a photo? The answer is no. I know that in some countries, there is a requirement to include your photo, your gender, your marital status at the top of your application materials. Here in the United States, we do not do that because we want to ensure that everybody is being treated fairly and equally, that we do not include those private things at the top of our resume. It helps prevent bias and discrimination. Other bonus tips include using action verbs and metrics to demonstrate the impact of your work wherever possible. And also, GW will be using an AI assistant called Skills First. And Skills First is a platform where you can create resumes that are optimized for applicant tracking system. Somebody in the chat mentioned that you should use keywords and tailor your resume and cover letter. Absolutely, because you want to ensure that your application materials, your resumes, and your cover letters are optimized for those applicant tracking systems, which are designed to pick out keywords and key phrases from your materials to see how much you align with the opportunity. Of course, only utilize keywords that are true and authentic to your experience. Next slide, please. All right. So as part of the application materials that you need to submit for employment opportunities, a cover letter and a tailored/personalized cover letter is a must. Even if it says optional, do not treat it as optional, treat it as required. Because a personalized cover letter can increase your chances of being invited to an interview. I want to be clear in saying that a resume and a cover letter get you an interview. Hopefully they can get you an interview. That is their purpose. They do not guarantee that you get a job. So you want to optimize your materials, meaning your resume and cover letter, in order to be invited to an interview, which Cole will cover in a later slide. So these are the items to include in a cover letter. You want to use the same header as the one that is on your resume. Keep it concise, 3 to 5 paragraphs. And also you want to utilize keywords from the job description that show alignment to your role. For example, if the job description says must be a team player and your cover letter says you're a collaborator, I would use the term that you have been, quote, a team player rather than collaborator, because if you have not seen that in the job description, that might decrease your chances of being optimized for the applicant tracking system. So be strategic with how you use those keywords and key phrases. In terms of the parts of the cover letters, you want to start off with a short introductory paragraph that includes a hook that connects your personal story to the mission of the organization. And then you want to demonstrate in the following paragraphs, the main body paragraphs, 1 to 2 paragraphs, how your experience and academic background align with the competencies that they are seeking in the job description. And I have to say that every experience counts. So be selective in identifying what experiences you want to utilize. So this can include work, internship, leadership, course projects that you have completed, even volunteer opportunities are all fair game because employers are looking for transferable skills. So these experiences do not have to be previously paid experiences or internships. They just need to be relevant experiences that can showcase your skills and competencies. Lastly, you'll want to include a short closing paragraph that briefly summarizes the reasons that you are a great match. So a cover letter should only be 1 page. And the Center for Career Services staff are well equipped with supporting you with brainstorming your cover letters, refining your cover letters. We will not write your cover letters for you, but we are, available as a resource to support you in, ensuring that your cover letter is personalized and tailored to the position description. This is part of the tuition that you pay for, so do not be shy in reaching out to us, creating an appointment in order to ensure that your materials are optimized for employment opportunities.
I do want to jump in really quickly and say that at this stage, there is a chance that you might not have access to Handshake, especially if you are an incoming student. That is how you sign up for an appointment with a career coach. So if you currently do not have access to Handshake, wait in order to have access to it in order to book your appointment. However, you could reach out to specific coaches directly in order to meet with them prior to your Handshake access. And for more information, just wait towards the end of this presentation for our contact information to be able to reach out to them directly prior to that access. But thank you. Great points.
Thank you, Bashar. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're going to go over application etiquette do's and don'ts. You see a job description, a position description for an opportunity you're interested in. You create your resumes, your cover letters, and you submit your application. So these are some of the application etiquettes here in the United States. Do only communicate with hiring managers through their work emails and work phone numbers. And so I'm going to go do the do columns first, and then we'll do the don't columns later. Okay. And also, I already emphasized the importance of submitting a tailored resume and cover letter comprised of relevant experiences. Some of you I know have a lot of experiences already. Do not overwhelm employers with a multi-page resume or pack in as much as you can with 8-point font that is hard to read. Ensure that it's 10 to 12 point font, only one page, and it's hyper tailored and personalized to the role. Do incorporate keywords from the job description throughout your resume and cover letter where applicable and true. And do consider following up via email to the hiring manager only if you have not heard back from them after a month or after a promised timeline. Okay, so do not reach out. Do reach out only after you have not heard back after a month or if you have not heard back after a promised timeline. So here are a list of don'ts. Do not send a thank you or ask for more information after you submit the job application. Once you submit the job application, give the hiring managers a chance to review all of the applications and give them a chance to respond. This is not the time to send a thank you in the application process. Also, do not send multiple emails and LinkedIn messages about the status of your application. Again, give them a chance to review all the applications that they have received, because over communication, like, pinging them every day, every week for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that can have a negative impact on your application. So you want to make sure that you give them space before you reach out. Also, do not be alarmed if a hiring manager does not contact you about your application. And the reason for that is because organizations process applications at different timelines. Smaller organizations, departments, and teams might be able to respond in 2 weeks, whereas in other organizations, it's normal to respond after a month or after 6 weeks. So do not be alarmed. And with that also, do not be discouraged if you do not receive a request for an interview. There are other opportunities to gain professional experience, and this includes volunteering and staying engaged in student organizations and attaining leadership in student organizations as well. Next slide, please. And now I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Cole.
All right. Thank you so much, Frederica. And I am really glad that you were able to walk us through the process of just like how you would actually submit these different documents and like how you should go about tailoring your resume and cover letter for the application. Now I'm going to get into what happens after you've submitted that application. And, if a hiring manager is interested in your skill set and they believe that, you could be a good fit for the role, you may receive a request for an interview. And so with this interview process, it often is a multi-stage process. So this can include phone screenings, video interviews, and in-person interviews. I would say if I'm like just basing this off of like kind of an average here, I think for a lot of on-campus jobs, you may expect like 1 to 2 rounds of interviews. So it really just depends on the office and what they kind of see fit for the interview process. But behavioral interviews are common, so focusing on a lot of those past experiences to predict future performance. You may be asked questions regarding like, tell us about a time when you did something like this, or bringing up those past experiences to understand how that skill set may be best for the position that you've applied for. And competency-based questions are frequently used as well. So just be mindful of the different types of questions that could be presented within this interview. Punctuality is definitely something that you want to, really be mindful of because being on time is crucial. Lateness is definitely seen as unprofessional and can be the thing that, maybe doesn't get you that second interview or that offer because, it is really important to make sure that, you're being respectful of time and in the workspace. Personal questions, again, Frederica had mentioned just things in relation to discrimination laws. So any questions about age, marital status, religion, and other personal topics are legally off limits. And throughout different interviews, it's pretty common that candidates are expected to confidently and concisely highlight their different achievements. So in a lot of ways, I know that it can be really awkward sometimes to really speak about, your certain achievements and like almost can appear boastful in some ways. But I would say something that has helped me in particular when navigating these sort of interviews is when you're speaking about an experience, using words such as like, I have had the privilege to do this experience, or I have been grateful to have, you know, done this role previously. When you bring up those different experiences, talk about them with confidence, but still, being able to express a sort of humbleness with, being able to engage in those work or leadership experiences. And always making sure that you are demonstrating a good fit with the company or organization's mission and work values. So always trying to tie back as to why you're able to, kind of align with the vision that that office sees for their impact. And making sure that, throughout your interview, whether it is like an in-person or virtual, eye contact is definitely something that is very good to do within these interview settings. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. All right, thank you. So now kind of getting into in the before the interview stage and how you might actually go about preparing for this. Definitely say that the number one thing you should do is researching the mission and vision of the company or organization. And that being said, sometimes it's even worth like taking that sort of deep dive on the organization's website. I will say I normally myself allot probably about 45 minutes, even to an hour, just to like research a little bit about the organization and kind of picking out those niche things that I find special about their organization. Because not only is this interview a time to, express your skill set, but it's also to give an opportunity and really relay what you think makes that office or organization special. So whether it's like, the bringing up maybe those like 3 to 4 really niche things that would help relay the fact that you have researched into that organization. I think that that is a great practice to make sure that they understand that you are fully on board with their vision of their impact. And if you do also have other questions about how to, go about preparing for the interview too, please meet with a career coach in our Center for Career Services. And of course, at the end, we will have our contact information so you can, continue to further engage with our office. But again, like Frederica mentioned, utilizing Handshake once you're all able to gain access is going to be really important to set up those different appointments. But again, just some other key things on where you can research that information about a company or organization. I mentioned the employer's website, but not just limited to that. You can also, look at the organization's LinkedIn posts, Glassdoor.com newspapers, as well as different industry journals. And one on here too is one that's not on here, I will say is just other social media platforms. I think that, even things like Instagram, or Facebook, they can be really great in seeing what kind of events or maybe what kinds of, marketing materials that they kind of post. So that way, you get a better understanding of um, what their work is. All right. So now that we've kind of talked about like before the interview, now I want to kind of get into what happens during the interview. Now, during the interview itself, you are often going to be confronted with that first question of tell us a little bit about yourself. And for those of you who are aware, it's pretty I'd say it's a pretty common industry standard to this being like a question and also this being the opportunity to give your elevator pitch. So this elevator pitch is essentially kind of a 60-second to 90-second sort of pitch to kind of relay to the employer what skills and what experiences you have had in the past that align with not only the position, but also just giving an opportunity to talk about yourself and what makes you unique. So that's normally that first question. And when we're going into more of the kind of questions within the interview, you definitely may be asked different types of questions. So the three that are pretty common are standard interview questions, strength-based questions, as well as behavioral interview questions. With standard ones, you may be asked more about why you're interested in this position and or wanting to work for the organization. So this is definitely one just trying to understand kind of general things about you and your interest. And then you have more of those strengths-based questions. So one example is, do you prefer to work individually or on a team and why? So this is again trying to understand what your unique skill set is. And then with more of these behavioral interview questions, these are ones that are more trying to bring up situations in the past that you've had, so that way you can relay how you might um, behave in a future work environment. So there may be questions such as tell us about a time when you encountered a challenge. And with all of these different types of questions, especially with the behavioral interview questions, it's really a great outline to utilize the STAR method. And we'll kind of go into, in our next slide, we'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth about that. But just know too that, throughout this interview process, you'll be utilizing that outline. And at the end of the interview, you normally want to make sure that you ask 3 to 4 questions. To always, I normally base those questions around things relating to the office culture, maybe things relating to, what are unique opportunities or challenges within the organization. And it's kind of that time for you to more informally build a relationship towards the end of the interview. All right, so now that we have mentioned the STAR method, I kind of want to go in a little bit of depth of what this is, because as we mentioned, a lot of the questions in an interview may often lead you to bring up examples of previous experiences that you've had. And what I mean by previous experiences is this could be some sort of academic achievement, this could be something where maybe you participated in a student organization, maybe you volunteered somewhere, maybe you worked somewhere. So there are lots of different experiences that you all, I'm sure, have had already that you can bring up for this outline. So because these previous experiences are kind of like the best evidence for how we might respond to future situations, when you speak about that experience, it's important to kind of give them a breakdown of what the situation was. So you want to make sure to describe the situation you were in by providing specific information that allows the listener to understand the context. So understanding who, what, when, and where. So again, if there's that question of tell us about a time where you encountered a challenge, you want to make sure that you're giving all those different contextual details that paint a very visual picture of, what was going on in that scenario. Then you want to make sure that you are describing what the task itself was. So you want to make sure that you're outlining what that challenge, dilemma, or obstacle that you did have to overcome or address in that situation. Because it's important for them to know what exactly you were trying to take action for. Which leads me to my next one is action. So, which specific steps did you take to address the challenge or obstacle? So, when you're describing that task, then you want to make sure you're outlining how you actually went about addressing that task. So, because this one's a really important part, in my opinion, because being able to actually talk about the thought processes and what you actually how you actually were led to that conclusion of taking that action is really important to help hiring managers see how you think about things and how you actually go about navigating situations and challenges. So then the last part, which I would say action is definitely very important, but also result is probably the most important. What were the concrete outcomes of your actions? So when you took action in that situation, how did you create some sort of impact? How did you benefit the people around you? How did this contribute to the success of the environment? So, this is where you have an opportunity to provide any sort of quantitative and qualitative results when possible. And this is definitely an opportunity to use some sort of positive example because you always want to make sure that you are showcasing that your actions create positive results. All right, and so then if we can go to the next slide too, I want to show you guys a little bit of an example of what this may look like when you're speaking about this experience in an interview. So for this person, they had mentioned like during their sophomore year as an undergraduate student, they had kind of come across a software program that they had never used before called R. They had no prior experience with R, and then they needed to quickly learn it to analyze large data sets and contribute meaningfully to the group project. Again, this is kind of painting a good contextual picture, so that way we know where they were at, what setting, and what the actual task was. And in order to analyze these large data sets, and actually contribute to the group project meaningfully, they took action by dedicating extra time outside of class to learn R. They completed online tutorials, attended workshops offered by the university's data science club, and sought help from the professor during office hours. And they collaborated closely with group members who were more experienced with R, asking for guidance and tips. This alone is showcasing here how they have taken extra time and, collaborated with others to make sure that they were successful in achieving positive results. And their positive result was, within a few weeks, they became proficient in using R and they successfully contributed to the group project. And they received high marks as well as they gained a valuable new skill. So, especially in that result part too, one thing I want to mention that is really great to always think about is when you are talking about those results, think about what you learned from those results and from that situation entirely. So that reflection piece at the end can be a really important part when we're talking about, just being able to learn from your experiences and the actions that you have taken. Right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so now that we have kind of done sort of the during the interview. Now for after the interview, I wanted to mention that I know Frederica had talked about how it's not necessarily encouraged to send a thank you after you've submitted your application. However, once you've gotten to that interview stage, it is always great etiquette to send a thank you message within 24 hours after an interview. So again, if you've submitted your application, no need to send a thank you there, but making sure that you are expressing thank you after an interview is really great practice to do. That often is taken into consideration within hiring. And making sure that you have write down any key points you have discussed in the interview to address them when writing a note. I think that that's really important to make sure that you relay to them that you've actually learned something from the interview. And instead of asking for a follow-up in your thank you message, mention how you look forward to the opportunity of speaking with them in further detail. Rather than asking like, what does the timeline look like? It can be a great opportunity to just, because you also want to be mindful of what their timeline looks like and being respectful and patient of, their decision-making process. So, in your thank you note, definitely just mention how you just look forward to speaking with them in further detail later. But making sure that you do reach out to your references to alert them that they may receive outreach from the organization. Now, this one may be a little bit more for external opportunities because normally for on-campus jobs, typically references are not required. But this is definitely something for maybe external opportunities in the future that you want to just make sure you always alert and ask your references for that they when you've gone through the interview stage. And definitely don't be alarmed if you do not hear back from hiring managers.
All right. I definitely want to say thank you to Cole, Frederick, and Jonathan for going over the overall points that the Center for Career Services and ISO have to offer regarding its resources. So I'll go ahead and close out today's presentation. I know it's been a bit of time, so we thank you all for your attention as well as your time here today for to view this presentation. But now I want to go over the specific logistics on how to create your job portal. So, when you get accepted into GW, you are not automatically given a job application portal for you to, or an account for you to go ahead and log into directly. However, it is super easy to create one. So if you go ahead and follow this link, which is gw-studentemployment.peopleadmin.com, feel free to take a screenshot of it. Feel free to either take a picture, or you could go ahead and go onto Google and just search GWU student employment. Click on the first link, and then it will take you to essentially this page to go ahead and start creating your portal account. So on the left-hand side, the third option, you'll see the option where it says create an account. So it will prompt you to then input a username, a security question, and its answer. Oftentimes, I highly, highly recommend students to input their SSO credentials as their username and their password because that's what easily gets transferred over when you are fully hired into a position. So that could be the first part of your email address that you already have, or it could be essentially what your SSO credentials are specifically. So most of the times that is your actual email address and then the password you use. So I'd recommend just using that information. So once again, on the left-hand side, you'll create your account. You'll be able to input your previous job experience and so forth. And that will then have you fully set to start reviewing the positions. As mentioned earlier, there are three different types, and you'll see them right here in front of you. There's the off-campus federal work study, the on-campus federal work study, and the non-FWS positions. And as mentioned earlier today, the off-campus federal work study and on-campus federal work study positions are reserved for domestic students that have a federal work study as part of their financial aid packages. And then non-FWS positions are open to the general student population, including international students, to apply to. Once you go ahead and create your account, you'll go ahead and start searching for jobs. So you could either click on the second button on the left-hand side to start viewing jobs, or if you know that you only qualify for one specific category, then you can go ahead and select that category. So for example, non-FWS positions, you just go ahead and click on that, and it will showcase to you all the positions that are available under that category, including job opening dates, point of contact information, and so forth. If you do need any more information on how to navigate the portal, how to create an account, how to view your applications, how to submit documentation, and so forth, then you can click the student user guide that you'll see on the left-hand side. As well as conveniently right under it, there's a link to send you directly to creating appointments with career coaches. So, for example, if you click on the link right under Student User Guide, it will give you more information on career appointments, events, internships, and external jobs that you can look into furthermore. But if you have already created your job and you're going to look for positions, then you should be on a landing page that looks like this. So what you would do once you click on search jobs and you have the non-FWS setting set up, it will go ahead and prompt the positions that are available under that specific category. So at a first glance, you'll see different columns. So you'll see number of openings, position types, departments, performed remotely, and post and close date. The number of openings is representing of how many positions or how many people they're hiring for the position. So if it's one, then they're only hiring one person. If it says five, then they're hiring five people, and so forth. The position type, once again, is either non-FWS, on-campus FWS, or off-campus FWS. You'll see that the titles, they are not unique in the sense that you can have multiple positions that say student research specialist 1 or 2 or 3 or student museum assistant 2 or 3. However, they could be for different departments. So you'll see that there are positions that are labeled student research specialist. There could be multiple of them, but the key factor is to focus on the departments. So one could be for events, one could be for the library, for example, one could be for, and these are administrative positions themselves. So if you want detailed information about the jobs specifically, I highly recommend clicking on the actual job. That way you'll be able to see a position specific summary. You'll be able to see the pay, you'll be able, or the pay range, which at this point, starting July 1st, is $18.40 USD an hour, which is a hike up from its minimum wage in the prior academic year. At DC, it seems to go up every single summer, sometimes twice a year. And so uh, it will also tell you about the location, if it is remote or not, the hours of expectation that they're looking for, as well as any supplemental questions that you have to answer in order for you to submit your application. So, key takeaway here is to focus on the department column when you're looking at different positions, or go ahead and click on the position itself in order to have a in-depth overview of what they're looking for and how to apply to it. Furthermore, finding a job specifically, once again, you can either click on the view details or you can bookmark them to view them later. Oftentimes, I really encourage students to use the bookmark feature because you don't want to jump in and use a cover letter that you have not spruced up or have not like looked over or not have made relevant to the position. Or let's say you want to meet with a career coach prior to submitting your application. So, the career coaches can have your application material reviewed or a couple of more questions, prior to submitting your application. You can go ahead and bookmark it. It's not a guarantee that it will stay there forever. So try to apply or try to meet with a career coach as soon as possible if you want to have that reviewed. And then once again, click on the view details. Now, Here is an example of what I was speaking about earlier. These two positions are labeled Student Research Assistant 2 positions that are non-FWS. And they are the same title and so forth, but you'll see right in front of you that the position descriptions are different and the departments are different. So one specifically works with the international affairs staff, and then one works with the environmental occupation health department. And so the locations obviously are the same, the position types are the same, but that's how you're able to, at a first glance, differentiate the positions from their generic titles, is by looking at the departments specifically and then clicking on the positions to learn more about or clicking on the job postings to learn more in depth about the positions. And then here is just a key diagram to showcase the workflow to success regarding what we've spoken about today. So, of course, prior to reaching this step, we hope that if you have any questions or any concerns about the type of work you can do in terms of the hours you can work, what specifics in terms of your visa could potentially clash with your work, please reach out to ISO. They are an incredible resource. The International Services Office are able to give you an in-depth overview of how your visa can affect your employment status here in the United States, what your capabilities are, what obstacles you may face, as well as some helpful tips, or actually a plethora of helpful tips as you navigate that cultural and financial transition into your next steps here at the university. But once you have met with ISO and you're able to go ahead and know specifically what options are available to you and what you're looking for, that's when hopefully you're able to create a handshake profile once you're able to get access to that. And then you could also create an applicant account from now. So if you have a GW ID and you have an email address, you are able to now freely go ahead and start creating your applicant portal and especially start applying for positions. But just keep in mind that your access to Handshake you might not receive until towards the end of July or mid-August. Um, and then after you have done so, you want to gather your work experience, your extracurricular activities. We all know that for a lot of you, it could either be your first job ever, or it could be, your first time transitioning into a role that could be categorized as work experience. So keep in mind that your extracurricular activities, your unique or efficient skills, those are all transferable skills that you can input into your resume, right? The clubs that you joined in high school, the achievements you've had, the scholarships you've earned, those are things that you can input if it's relevant towards the jobs that you're seeking currently, especially at this stage in your lives. So this showcases essentially two options from that point forward. So you can either apply to positions after you have created your portal and gathered your experience and essentially created your resume and cover letter and apply. And then that is when the departments will review your applications. Or you can make an appointment with a career coach, have the opportunity to have your resume, your cover letter, all of your application material in general reviewed, as well as discuss your career interests and goals, which sometimes can influence how you approach GW's job market, or it could approach what opportunities you want to look at. Do you want to? I know I've had discussions with students prior that they wanted to go into really administrative heavy roles right off the bat. And after meeting with some of our career coaches, they've learned that they want to go more into research. So it is really dependent on how you are able to have these discussions with your coaches, right? They can only meet you halfway. So as much as you're able to invest into them with how detail oriented you are, what you want to know, what information you want them to know about your career goals and your interests, the more they're able to help you navigate that. So make sure to communicate well with them in order to help you have a better understanding of your career goals and interests. Then you'll be able to review your strategic interview practices as well as follow-up practices with your employers. As mentioned prior, when you submit an application, you definitely want to avoid, especially at GW, following up with employers, primarily as hiring managers specifically, mostly because they're receiving dozens and dozens of applications with each job posting. And it's just quite frankly unrealistic for all of them to reach out to every single email that's sent out. So, for your own benefit and also for your own time efficiency, definitely focus on sending a thank you letter after the interview stage, as mentioned prior. So if you do land an interview and you're able to have that interaction with the employer face to face, one-on-one, you can then, by all means, send a thank you letter because they are expecting some form of communication at that point in your application stages. And then once you've reviewed your strategic interview practices and how to follow up, you can then therefore have a refined resume and cover letter all set and ready, as well as your remaining application materials, such as your class schedule, or your portfolios or so forth. And then you can go ahead and apply. And so that's just to visually showcase what people are missing out on by not going the route into using, once again, what Frederica was saying, something that you guys are already paying for as part of your tuition. It is a fantastic resource. Every office here is able to, set you up as a form of success in regards to what you're seeking. So definitely use the offices around you as a great resource in order to understand your needs and your opportunities here at GW. But as mentioned earlier, for all job-related questions, so how to apply, where to apply, how to access the website. Let's say you're having trouble logging in. That would be my department, so student employment. And our email address is gwsc@gw.edu. Our phone number is there as well. However, we are a lot more responsive over email, or quicker, I should say, and then a direct link to our website for all career development related questions. So once again, resumes, cover letters, networking strategies, and to understand more. Here's their email. So it's gwcareercenter@gw.edu. Their main phone number, as well as the Career Connect, which is our networking resource. Once again, as mentioned earlier, if you are interested in meeting with specific career coaches such as Frederica and Cole, keep in mind that you would need access to Handshake in order to make that appointment. However, if you do not have access to Handshake, you can go ahead and reach out to the email address below, gwcareercenter@gw.edu, and request to be able to be connected with a coach prior to your access given. That way, you'll have the opportunity to meet with one of our coaches to discuss your next steps and what you're looking for in terms of support. And then for all immigration related questions, so once again, this is visa related, this is how many hours you can work, and everything in between. The GW International Services Office, ISO specifically, is the best resource. So the email address is iso@gwu.edu. Their website is internationalservices.gw.edu, as well as their physical office address. Jonathan, I'm assuming that has not changed, so we're good there. Perfect. So, if you guys would like to visit their office, or if you would like to have specific questions or even learn more about their career ambassadors, definitely feel free to visit them. And our office is in the University Student Center. It's on the fifth floor. So that is where student employment is housed, and that is where our career coaches are housed, the overall Center for Career Services. And then a common question that we get asked a lot is tax related questions. Like once you step into your job as an international student, what do those taxes look like? How do I navigate through that? That is when you should reach out to GW Tax Department. So their email is tax@gw.edu, and their website is taxdepartment.gw.edu. And the main reason is because we are not licensed authoritative tax individuals or accountants to be able to legally give you tax advice. So that is why we have to direct you guys or to ask you guys to go to the tax department here at GW. And then here is our specific information. Here is the hosts for today. Once again, Student Employment, Career Learning Experiences, and International Services Office.